In this video, I'm going to talk about how I trade the Asian session, and then I'm going to go over a trade that I took last night during the Asian session that ended up doing about 140 points. All right. So this right here is the trade that we're going to look at. So you can see I bought down here and sold up here. All right. So you can see this was two attempts. I actually bought somewhere here, and then I didn't like how the price was moving, so I sold it quickly. And then I bought again, and then we had this nice move up. So bought down here, sold up here. This is a trade we're going to talk about. All right, cool. So as you can see, we're on the micro E-mini NASDAQ chart. Here's the ticker symbol for you, MNQM 2026, and we're on the daily time frame. So now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and remove that from the charts so we can keep the charts clean. And there we are. All right, so first thing we're going to talk about is bias. All right, so at this point, my bias, I've switched from a bearish bias to a bullish bias. Okay, so we talked about this fair value gap, if you can remember from previous videos. Talked about this fair value gap right here, that if we closed above it, that's when I would reconsider my bearish bias. We can close above it and then use it. And then if we could see the price, use it as support to go higher. Okay, something like that. Close above it, use it as support to go higher. Then that's when I would reconsider my bearish bias. And that's what I've done. So I've switched from being bearish to bullish because we closed above this level, and we see this level was used to support the price moving higher. As you can see, we have bullish prices here. Okay. Now, this is where we closed on Friday, right here. Okay. So as I just stated, coming into the day today, or last night, because the day really starts at 6 p.m., okay, in the evening. So that's when the futures market open, as most of us would know. 6 p.m. in the evening is when the day really starts. All right, so last night, coming into the market, this is where we closed on Friday, but coming into the market last night, my bias would be bullish. Cool. So one thing I want to take note of on here is we have a fair value gap left behind right here. You see this? So when we closed up here, there was a fair value gap that was left behind. I'm going to go ahead and put that on the charts so we can see it right there. You can see. So that's the high of this candle down here, and the low of this candle makes up the fair value gap. And we got this space between these two bodies here. That's a volume imbalance. And so we have to include that as a part of the fair value gap. All right, cool. So now, since we have this fair value gap left behind, right? This is where I'm going to talk about the difference between bias and narrative, okay? Because my bias is bullish going into the day. However, since we left this fair value gap behind, the narrative suggests that even though the price is bullish overall in the grand scheme of things, all right, it might need to come down into this fair value gap first before continuing higher. You see the difference? So yes, just because if the price should start moving down into this fair value gap, doesn't mean that the bias is bearish. It's just the narrative suggests that, hey, we might see some bearish price action coming down into this fair value gap, and then we'll resume being bullish from there. So that's the difference between bias and narrative. Okay. So my interest coming into the day and into the week was to see if we could get the price to trade down into this fair value gap. Okay. Now, Is this a must? Do they have, does the price have to come down to this fair value gap? No, it doesn't have to do it. I've seen situations where the price continues higher and this remains open and untraded too for a while. Okay. But a lot of times, and in my experience, I, most of the times when we have a fair value gap left behind like this, even though the price doesn't always come back to it right away, it doesn't always come back to it immediately. But a lot of times, high percentage at times, the price is going to want to trade back down into this fair value gap. So that's something I was anticipating coming into the week and trying to see if the price would have a willingness to return to this fair value gap before continuing higher. Now, so yeah, my bias is bullish, but that's the narrative. All right, cool. So now let's talk about the trade that was taken during the Asia session. Now that we talked about this, all right, I'm going to keep this on the chart because, like I said, we want to see the price come down into this fair value gap. So now I'm going to go down to the 15-minute time frame. All right. And this is what happened, okay? This is how we opened up last night at 6 p.m. right here. See this? This is the open at 6 p.m. right there. So right at the open, the target was met, okay? We immediately gapped right down into that bullish fair value gap from the daily time frame. And just like that, the target that I was looking for coming into the day and coming into the week, this objective that I was looking for was already met right at the open. So therefore, I had to switch up my expectations, and not really, because when I say what I mean is I could no longer look for the price to move down into the fair value gap because it just gapped right down into it at the open. So when this happened, now I have to switch my thinking from moving down into here to moving up out of here. Okay, so now I'm looking for bullish prices. Had we not just gapped down into this fair value gap, then I would be looking to see if the price is moving down into this level right here. And maybe I could be a part of this move as it comes down into here. But since we just gapped down into it, now my interest is to be bullish and to see which is in alignment with my bias, right? So I'm bullish, my bias is bullish. And since we're here in this fair value gap, I'm interested in higher prices, bullish prices going higher. And I'm interested in being in a move that's going to go up higher from here. All right, cool. So now, before we even go any further, whenever I'm trading the Asia session or the Asian session, right, I usually like to have the new week opening gap on here. You see this big gap right here? This is the new week opening gap. All right, so I'm always going to have this on my chart if I'm going to be trading the Asian session. So let me go ahead and put this on the chart so we can see it. And there we are. That's the new week opening gap. So that's the close of the price. The close, it goes from the closing price on Friday to the opening price on Sunday. That's how we get the new week opening gap. All right. So I'm assuming that we all kind of know how to find this. Okay. If you don't know what this is or how to find it, how to draw it on your chart, let me know in the comment section so I can know who I'm talking to. And then maybe I can do a more in-depth video talking about how to draw the new week opening gap. But it's pretty straightforward. Okay. All right, cool. So now when we have the new week opening gap like this, you can see it's a pretty big gap. Okay, this was at about 300 and something points. So we go from here down to here. You can see that's like 328 point gap right there. So because the gap is so big, what I'm going to do and what I did was I broke the gap up into quadrants. Okay, so let me put that on the chart so we can see what that looks like. Right there. See that? broke it up into quadrants right there, 4 equal parts. Cool. So now, once we get down here and trade down into this bullish fair value gap from the daily time frame, if the price trades away from this new week opening gap down into here, since I'm bullish, my expectation is that the price is going to return to the new week opening gap. See what I'm saying? Because this gap is going to act like a magnet on the price. Okay? So the price is usually trying to get back to this new week opening gap. So that was my mindset as I'm coming into the market last night and looking to trade the Asian session. So once I saw that we got down into this fair value gap, that's when I was interested in trading the Asian session. And I was looking for the price to gravitate towards this new week opening gap. And once we get to it, you see these quadrants. Each of these quadrants can be targets. So as we trade up into the new week opening gap, we can use this quadrant as a target. We can use this quadrant as a target, which is the midpoint, otherwise known as the consequent encroachment in ICT terminology, right? We can target the consequent encroachment. We can target this upper quadrant, and we can target the high of it, which would give us a complete gap closure. So those are things that we can target. Okay, are you following? Cool. So now, to take this trade, right? Let's play this forward a little bit and see how the price was developing here. Let's see what happened after we you can see we gapped down, came down into the fair value gap, and we kind of got a bounce out of it. So let's play this forward and see what happened after this, okay? So you can see the price came back down into the fair value gap again. All right, there we are. So what I want to do now is, as the price is traded into the fair value gap, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this little area down here. Let me highlight this so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's make this yellow. You see this little area here that traded down into the fair value gap? This is where I'm going to be looking to take my entry. So I'm going to be looking for something down here that's going to allow me to take an entry and then trade back up into the new week opening gap and then start targeting these quadrants. See what I'm saying? Now, as I'm looking into this area down here, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the correlated asset, because I'm always tracking what the correlated assets are doing as well. Now, in this case, let's get this one here. Okay, let's clean this up a little bit. There we go. So there we go. This is the ES right here. Okay, cool. So on ES, I'm going to be tracking what the price is doing down here. And I'm going to be comparing NQ over here with ES over here. All right, cool. And I'm trying to see if I can get some kind of a bullish setup that's going to allow me to enter a trade and move up into the new week opening gap and start targeting these quadrants. Cool. So to get this entry that I'm trying to find, I'm going to go down to the 1 minute time frame. And there we are in the 1 minute time frame. Okay. Let's bring the ES down to the 1 minute time frame as well. And let's see what happened. So right away, one thing that we can take note of is, you see this low here? So pay attention to the cross tool and the vertical line. Pay attention to the vertical line here. You can see this low here, right? On NQ right here. You can find the same low on ES over here. Right there. Okay? Same low right here. Now, you can see here how ES came down and took out this low at 6:29 p.m. right here. Okay? See that? Let me zoom in a little bit so we can see. You see this low right here? ES came down and took out that low right here. But what do you notice over here on NQ? The same low right here. What do you notice? This low was never taken out. Was never taken out. So over here, we can see how the low was taken out on ES or on NQ. That low was never taken out. So what's that? That gives us a cracking correlation between these two correlated assets. So we have a cracking correlation, and that's going to give us SMT divergence. Okay, so right here, if you want to see the divergence, here's the low that was never taken out on NQ right there. Okay, just so you can see the divergence. And here's the low that was taken out on ES. The same low taken out on ES here. Okay. And we had that SMT divergence, which is a cracking correlation. So now that we have that, right? Now I'm going to be looking for some kind of an entry in here. All right. So what I'm looking for now is some kind of confirmation that the price can start moving higher. So I'm trying to, basically what I'm going to be looking for, I'm going to be looking for a fair value gap, a bearish fair value gap. And I want to see the price move up and invert that fair value gap. Trade above it, close above it, okay? And it's going to turn it into an inversion fair value gap. And I want to use that as confirmation that the price can start moving higher. All right, cool. So you can see I'm applying some of the same principles that I apply in the past videos, trading other sessions, the New York session and things like that, right? Or the pre-market session. I'm applying similar principles. Okay. So you can see now, if you look into this price action, let's try to find a bearish fair value gap. Okay. And one thing I want to say is the entry is going to be, for this trade, the entry is really the least important thing. Okay. The most important thing is getting the direction right. So in my mind, I want to see the price move up towards the new week opening gap here. And then once we move up to there, I want to start targeting the quadrants. That's the most important thing. If the price can do that, the entry is going to be the least important thing, because regardless of how you enter, you're going to be profitable. See what I'm saying? All right. So for my entry though, I attempted to enter. Honestly, I don't remember which one of these fair value gaps I used, but I think my first attempt must have been like here. Okay. You see this? It couldn't have been that one. Maybe it was this one. I think my first attempt must have been here. And please forgive me, because as you can see, there's a lot of chop going on in here before the price actually started moving. Okay. So I attempted an entry probably here. If it's not here, it was something like this. And then I didn't like how the price was moving. You can see it kind of came down and stuff. So I quickly exited the trade. Okay. Now, I didn't have to exit the trade because my stop was going to be at these lows down here. You see where we have the cracking correlation? This should be a protected low. I would not expect this low to be taken at this point in time. So that's why I said the entry is really the least important thing, because regardless of where you enter in here, if you have your stop down here, you're not going to be stopped out, or you would not have been stopped out in this trade. Okay. So I really could have kept my original entry, but for whatever reason, I felt like I didn't like how the price was moving and I exited the trade. And then I re-entered, okay? So if you can see, let's see. Let's see where the price started moving. I think um I entered, I think I entered here. I re-entered here, okay? So let's take this back. You can see how this played out, okay? Um, Here, you can see we have a fair value gap here. You can see the price closed above the fair value gap, and that would make this an inversion fair value gap. So it's a bullish inversion fair value gap right there. Let's get an inversion fair value gap there. All right. You can see we have a close above it. I think that's where I entered. But then the price was selling off again a little bit, and then the stop is down here. So I'm not stopped out the trade. But then you play this forward and you see the price finally starts moving. So this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the price to reach back up into the new week opening gap here. So as we play this forward, you can see came back down, right, into that bullish fair value gap once again from the daily time frame. Let's remove this yellow box here because I just kind of highlighted this just to show you where I was looking for an entry. As the price moved down into the fair value gap from the daily time frame, that's where I start looking for entries. Some kind of setup that can get me long. So you can see here, we have a setup here. We closed above the fair value gap, making it an inversion fair value gap, stops at the protected low, the price starts moving higher. Come back down into the fair value gap here. This is not a reason to exit the trade, okay? So now we play this forward some more. You can see the price, we're up. Now we're back up into the new opening gap. So if I'm ever trading the Asian session and I'm bullish, I'm always going to be looking for the price to go back up into here. Now from here, I can start targeting these quadrants, okay? So if I play this forward, let's play this forward, you can see the price starts moving higher. And eventually, you can see the price is going to make it up into the quadrant right there. And that was my trade in the Asia session right there. Okay, so the only reason I'm looking for these quadrants to be met is because I have a bullish bias. Okay, so this is not pattern trading. We're not just looking for patterns. We got to understand what the narrative and what the bias is. The narrative is that we traded down into the fair value gap from the daily time frame. That's something that I would be interested in seeing happen. And since we gap right down into it, now we can go long. If we were bearish, you wouldn't want to be looking for these quadrants because it would be lower probability. If I was bearish, then what could happen is the price could move up into here and then it could just dump. Like, let me take this magnet off, right? So if we're bearish, if the bias was bearish and if the market was bearish and we're looking for this same trade, the price could have moved up into here, come down, use the low of the new week opening gap as resistance, come down, maybe get a bounce off of here, and then start dumping, start moving lower. So we got to understand narrative and bias, okay? Cool. So there, because the bias was bullish, I trusted that we would be able to make it up into these targets. And you can see this is where I was able to get this target, and then I exited my trade soon after this. All right, because once we get here, I'm paying attention to how do we trade here. As you can see, as I play this forward, you can see the price starts selling off here. All right. But as the price started selling off, we took out this low here, we took out this low here. I just decided I was going to exit the trade. somewhere here because I did not want to endure like a deep retracement. No, I still expected that the price would eventually go higher, but I didn't want to sit through a whole lot of chop and I didn't want to sit through a deep retracement. And you can see if we go from here, this inversion fair value gap down here, let's say we enter on this candle that closed above the inversion fair value gap all the way up to this quadrant. You can see that's about 149 points. So that's a lot of points. So that's more than enough. That's sufficient. We always got to make sure we're keeping our greed in check as well and not being greedy. Okay. 149 points, that's more than enough. So if I see the price start showing a little bit of weakness and looking like it may want to have a deep retracement, I just decided I was going to exit there. And that was my trade for the Asia session right there. Now, eventually you're going to find that the price is going to keep moving up and meeting these targets. All right. So let's actually look at that. Now, my trade was ended here. Okay. But just to make the point about targeting these quadrants, this is the 15-minute time frame, so we can see it a little bit clearer. Okay. Keep playing this forward. We can see how eventually the price went up and met these targets. All right. So that was a trade from here up to here. I also was in this trade here. All right. During the London session. And I was aiming for this. Now, unfortunately, I exited the trade before the move because you can see the chop was real. Okay. This was really choppy right here. And I kind of just got tired of this chop and I just exited the trade. But eventually you can see the price reached up into the consequent encroachment, the midpoint of the gap. And that's what I really wanted, but I kind of just gave up on it and just kind of exited the trade there. And then, but if you look, you can see how we went from here up into the low of the gap, up into the lower quadrant, up into the midpoint of the gap. We came down back into the lower quadrant. And now it's going to find support there and the price is going to move higher. See that? And I took another trade as well where I was in this move as this was moving higher somewhere here. I was in this move somewhere. I got a piece of this move as well because my bias was bullish. Okay. So you can see the price moved up. And we closed above the midpoint of the gap, came back down into the midpoint of the gap here and found support here. And then we were able to trade up into the upper quadrant of the gap. And then we got a full gap closure here. So you can see how each quadrant was being used. Okay. So that was my trade that I showed earlier for the Asian session. So hopefully this was insightful. Hopefully you learned something from this. If that is the case, then go ahead and give the video a like. All right. And subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so, because I release videos like this one every single week. All right. So just keep at it because before you know it, you're going to be right where you need to be, right on time. You should see some videos popping up on your screen right now. So if you enjoyed this video, then you're going to enjoy one of those videos as well.